Please go ahead.
Morning, everybody. Thanks for joining us on the call. Again, very appreciative of the opportunity to be part of Hockey Canada. Grateful to Scotty Salmon and Catherine Henderson and everybody for providing us the opportunity. To name what we think is a really overwhelming, talented group of players. We set out to build a team with a goal in mind, a singular goal in mind to compete at the highest level for best on best in a Four Nations event. We certainly wanted to look at balancing an eye towards the future, knowing that best on best is firmly implanted in the NHL players now for moving forward. So we wanted to find that balance of identifying that next core of great players. But we are really excited about the coaching staff that we put together, led by Coop, and most importantly, the players that we've assembled to going forward with this event. Coop?
Yeah, I would reiterate the same thing. It's been a really, really exciting time, and I kind of joked about this last night that the Boston Bruins are a chief rival of ours in our division in this league, and I think I've been on the phone with Don Sweeney more than I have with Julian Breesbaugh the past 2 months. But it's been a phenomenal experience, and I can't stress enough of how much work went into this building this team, and as coaches we get to watch a lot of game and video. We get to see teams up close in this, 20 to 25 games most teams have played. But management's kind of been the boots on the ground and have done so much work and been so thorough in everything they've done. And our goal is to win the tournament. And that was from the onset. And the team that we put together, it was built to do that. And I think you look up and down that lineup, and unfortunately there are, because of the talent pool, there's probably some deserving players that aren't on the roster right now. But what I can say is this is as competitive group as you will find, and there's every one of these players will, as I said, lay in traffic for their country, and it was a big part of coming together with this group, of mixing what we consider an ultra talented group with just a huge competitive nature in this group. And so we're really excited about the team.
Thank you, John. Merci, Dom. We'll start with questions for Alex and Mark. Once we're finished with questions for Alex and Mark, we'll then take questions for Don and John. You can raise your hand now if you have a question. We'll do one question per person to start, and if time permits, we can have some follow-up questions there. Mike, your mic is open.
Yeah, this is for Petro. Alex, 2 years ago, we know what was going on with your family, and you were actually contemplating retirement. And since then, you've won a Stanley Cup, and now you're going to be part of Team Canada. Just discuss your journey and what a thrill this is to get this opportunity from where you came from 24 months ago.
Yeah, it's been a long couple of years, obviously. I think the cool thing when you do have kids and you're playing in this league is you get to experience something that not many kids will get to. They might not understand it yet, but I always say, like, you look back and you see all these pictures of, guys, photos in the locker room with, whether it's Crosby, McDavid, all these guys that superstars in the league. And one day I think they'll appreciate it, right? It's a cool opportunity. They've never seen me play for my country. So that's going to be a special thing for us. Something that, like I said, not many kids get to say who play hockey. So that kind of keeps you going, keeps you motivated. But you know what? Yeah, it's been a long couple of years, but sometimes you makes you take a step back and really enjoy the small things. So I don't take for granted that I'm on this team and I have the opportunity to share it with them. Pretty cool for me.
Thank you.
Lee, your mic is open.
Thank you. For either Mark or Petro or both of you, you both were brought to this organization for specific reasons and in leadership roles and to bring a Stanley Cup here. What's it say to be part of the building blocks of an organization that has 7 players in this entire event?
Yeah, I mean, it's exciting. I mean, we won the Stanley Cup no longer than a year ago, right? So I think you see the teams that have had success over the last few years are sending tons of players. I think we're pretty happy with all the guys that have been picked to represent their country. We think they're deserving, obviously. I think for Petro and I, it's exciting to be on the team with Theo and Hiller. Just adds a little bit more familiarity, I guess. But it's an exciting time. I'm 32 now, and I've never been in the league for a best on best tournament, so I'm pretty excited.
Thank you. And when you ask your question, if you could just say your name and affiliation, that would be greatly appreciated. Josh, your mic's open.
Yeah, so Josh Clipperton with the Canadian Press. Just for Mark as well, just your view of the roster and what it's going to be like walking into that locker room in Montreal with all the talent.
I mean, I think the roster speaks for itself. I mean, you got Stanley Cup champions, Olympic gold medalists, World Championships, and you look at the leadership at the top with Sid and bleeds down to all the guys who have been there before. So it's a pretty special roster. Hall of Famers all over it. So pretty excited to get into that locker room and get this team assembled and ready to go.
Danny, your mic is open.
Hey, Danny Webster, Las Vegas Review-Journal. Mark, obviously the last couple of years have been frustrating for you, and you've talked about just the frustration of not being able to play every game, and this year missing half the season so far. But to know that your play has been so good to still have a spot on Team Canada, how rewarding is that for you?
Yeah, I mean, I'm excited to be a part of it. You never know when the time's going to pass you by, but yeah, unfortunately I've been hurt a lot, but I still feel like they're kind of fluky injuries, and I still feel like I'm able to play at a high level. So I'm definitely excited to be a part of it, excited to be part of a best on best tournament for the first time, and looking forward to it, like I said.
DJ, your mic is open.
Hi there. A question for Alex. It's Chris Johnson from The Athletic and TSN. I'm just wondering, having been through these sort of events in the past, how would you describe the challenge ahead for you guys with, some of you flying across the country, maybe one practice and jumping right into this thing?
Yeah, that part's never easy, but we do it on a regular basis, right? So that's the thing, is we're used to flying all over and all that. We're actually going to be on the East Coast right before that. Okay, it's kind of a bit of an advantage for us, but you put that talent pool together, guys can figure it out pretty quickly. I don't think Coop is going to make things too complicated for us. You try and go through systems, but everyone who's at that tournament is playing at a high level for a reason. They can think the game at a high level, so it's easy to adapt, and the rest takes, the skill takes over from there. But I think the biggest thing too is you got a lot of talent in special teams and finding out where everybody slots and going over those things systematically. But there's so much excitement, so much joy, and everybody being there that everybody gets dialed in pretty quickly. And first couple of days are really just getting to know each other. I play with a lot of guys, but not everybody. So you spend a day kind of meeting everybody, and then you get to work for one day. But everybody's in the same boat, right? All the countries are in the same situation. So I feel like our hockey IQ that we have on this roster should put us ahead of everybody.
Marc-Antoine, go ahead.
Yes, hello. This is Marc-Antoine Godin with Radio Canada CBC. My question is for Alex. Actually, it's a two-part question. First off, you've had the chance to play with two of the goalies that have been selected, Aiden Hill and Jordan Binnington. So what stands out in in both of their cases in their capacity to do the job in such a tournament? And second part, you've been in Sochi. You were also part of the decor at the World Cup in 2016. So how does this blue line compare in terms of style with what you've experienced before in best on best tournaments?
Well, going to the goalies, yeah, I'm looking forward to playing in front of, obviously both guys. Both very competitive, right? That's the one thing that you see, and I know Coop touched on it about how competitive this group is. And if you look at, obviously, the way Benner plays, very competitive, same with Hilsey. So a little bit of different styles. I'm not a goaltending guru, but I think they're a little bit different in the way they play and extremely competitive the way they approach the game. On the back end, I mean, a little bit different. I think, obviously, Kale is once in a decade kind of player. That'll be fun to watch, be on the same team as him. And you got to find everybody. They slot in a certain position, and they pick the team for guys that have certain roles, right? So if you look at, we had a couple of big right-handed shots in Sochi with myself, Drew and Webby, and you got myself and Parayko on the back end on the right side, and Shea's obviously versatile playing right or left. So the big thing in these kind of tournaments with the capabilities of the forwards is it's always just got to be able to move the puck, defend well, and let the forwards do the work. So I think you look at us, we're all long, we're all big, we can all move the puck, and I think that's an important thing in this tournament is trying not to do too much and letting the capabilities of that skill work.
Kelly, your mic is open.
Thanks very much. Kelly Moore, 680 CJOB, Winnipeg. First to Alex and Mark, congratulations, and thank you for getting up early to do this. For Mark, the sheer joy that you get scoring goals during the regular season, and I'm just wondering, when you were growing up in sunny St. James, if you ever envisioned what it might be like to score a goal for Canada, and will the sheer joy-o-meter be ramped up even more so?
I'm not sure. I guess we'll have to wait and see. I mean, this is a different experience for me. Will be a different experience for me, but yeah, like I think Petro said, it'll be pretty cool to get into a celebration with that team. I mean, you see the guys that are you're going to be sharing the bench with, sharing the ice with. It's going to be pretty awesome. And I mean, I don't know if I'll be able to control my emotions when things go good, but well, I guess we'll see. I'm sure I'll do something stupid.
Matt, your mic is open.
Hey guys, this one is for Mark and Alex, if you guys don't mind. I'm just curious, how much do you consider this tournament to be an audition of sorts to prove your worth to the management group for the Olympics in 2026?
Well, I'm sure they're looking at that as well, right? I'm sure that's always on the table. But things a lot can change in a year, right? But I don't think it's really when you're there in the back of anybody's mind, right? You get on that best on best tournament and you're just playing the best you can. Leading up to it, sure, it can be a conversation, but I think those things kind of get pushed to the back once you're playing. It's just, you forget about all the outside noise and just go out there and play the game. So, but good question for management. I'm not gonna. That's probably a better question for them.
Yeah, I mean, I look at it the same way. I think everyone, the 23 guys that are going are there to win a tournament, right? The Olympics is in a year and a half. I think obviously, I think there's guys that can play well and make a good impression, but I think the 23 of us are there to try and win.
Mick, if you had a question, you can go ahead now.
This one's for Don Sweeney and for John Cooper. Donnie, it looks like a typical Team Canada roster dominated by centermen, and the wingers that you do have are really line drivers, a couple of finishers. Were there thresholds you were looking to establish with this roster as far as the kind of players, the widgets, and are there any essential roles that you needed redundancies in case of injury? And John's end of it is, how do you determine which of these centermen are definitely need to be centermen and which of them are most applicable to play wing for you?
Mick, from a standpoint of thresholds, one of the best parts about picking this team is they're all going to meet that threshold of being great players and producing. So that was an easy one from that standpoint. We spent a lot of time, as a management group, putting together mock rosters independently and then allowing them to merge and see where the consensuses were. Once we had 6 players picked, it was really important for Coop and his staff to sort of identify to us who was really going to be, his strength up the middle of the ice, where he was going to play guys, and we built the roster out from there. And then it was who's a complement in situational ice time that may be allocated. The injury replacement such we can't control. We just have identified a long enough group of players, and we're fortunate that Canada has the depth that we do. From the standpoint, if we do have to replace players, we're going to be able to find players that qualify in the threshold and or the positional needs that may be required. We're just trying to build the best team around the identity as the coaches had described to us, the style of play that we want to have, and accomplish the ultimate goal.
Yeah, as for the centermen, you can never have enough of them, but you have to have centermen too that have the ability to play the wing if they can. We do have players in our team that can do that, that will have to do that, and it's been in the league for a while now, and you have built a lot of relationships, and it's kind of one of the rewarding things about going through this journey was, I coach the Tampa Bay Lightning, and there's 31 other coaches that wouldn't probably give their trade secrets away or talk about their players, but I couldn't believe how open coaches were about the strengths. And I wouldn't sit here and say no coaches would ever go through weaknesses, but they would talk about the strengths of the players and the positions they could play and what they felt they were best at. And so that was extremely helpful. I think communication is big in a lot of these, trying to figure out the nuances of some of the players, but there's no doubt that went into it about, can players play their off wings? Can centers play the wing? And so we felt we have a great kind of group that kind of checks all those boxes.
I'm going to lower everyone's hands here, and then I'm going to do a last call for questions for Mark and Alex so we can allow them to go about their day. So if you have a question for Mark and Alex, raise your hand now. Danny, go ahead.
Mark, while we have you here, I'd be remiss if I didn't ask how you were feeling. Obviously, you've been skating the last couple days. Do you feel like you'd be good enough to go tomorrow, or is it still like a wait and see thing?
We're supposed to figure that one out tomorrow, Danny, but I feel good. I'm excited to get back with my teammates this week, but see how my pregame skate goes tomorrow. Make sure I'm dialed in before I make that decision.
Carissa, your mic is open.
Hi, thanks so much for taking the time to do this. Carissa Donkin with CBC Sports. Just for Mark and Alex, we've not had the pleasure of seeing Sidney Crosby and Connor McDavid line up together and wear Team Canada jerseys, just having not had that best on best tournament for a few years. As guys who played against them and who love the game, what does that mean for the sport of hockey to get to play alongside these two guys in a tournament like this, for one, and just for people to be able to watch that? What do you think it means?
Well, it's nice to have him on your side for a change, I'll tell you that. Just played against Connor the other day. I mean, obviously, generational talents. Playing with Sid firsthand, it's pretty cool to watch. You obviously play against guys when you're in the fight. Sometimes you don't really see everything, but when you get into practice with these guys and talk to them, and it's pretty special. I think the whole point of this tournament leading up to the Olympics is to get that best on best, right? The goal for all of us is to grow the game and have the game being seen worldwide. So you get two of the best players, if not the two best players, playing with each other in certain situations. I'm not sure if they're going to play together, what it is, but that's a pretty fun thing to watch. And sometimes when you're on the same team as them, you get stuck watching them in practice, especially. So, even the other teams, right? You got a lot of talented players on all four countries playing with each other. It's a great thing for the game, and that's why we do these tournaments.
We'll wrap up questions for Mark and Alex with Willie.
Thank you, Willie Ramirez, for the hockey news. Alex, a little bit of a fun one here. You mentioned that you're looking forward to your kids appreciating this someday and representing your country. When you and I sat down earlier this season, you said you come home to some final scores. They now can see the finals. Have you thought about some scouting reports from them? Or are you going to feel a little pressure of when you're representing your country and maybe checking back into headquarters and your kids are there with the finals waiting?
Well, they're American. I hope they're going to cheer for us. I gotta get it into their brain that they got to cheer for Canada. They're really, really excited about it. It's one of those things as a kid, right? Like they're going to be in the locker room. Coop, hopefully you let them in the locker room. It's going to be one of those things where they, looking around and I'm trying to teach them, right? Like they know our guys, they know Stoney, they know obviously guys on our team, but they're kind of getting into the hockey cards and all that. So got to make sure they're prepared to bring that in. But oh yeah, they're tough critics. Trust me. We lost the game. We lost to Utah the other day. They weren't too happy about it. So they're a little happy this morning that we won a couple in a row.
Perfect. That looks like it's all the questions. Thanks, Alex. Thanks, Mark. Feel free to jump off, and we'll proceed to questions
guys.
for John and Don. Mike, you're open.
Yeah, Mike Zeisberger again from NHL.com. For both of you guys, you've got 3 Tampa forwards, 2 Florida forwards, 2 Vegas defensemen, 2 Colorado defensemen. Jimmy Nill was talking about the lack of practice time for this tournament. It's not like the Olympics. How important is familiarity when you put together a team that's not going to have a lot of time to gel? And secondly, do you guys allow yourselves to be kids in the fact that you get to put together a team where generational players like Sid and McKinnon and McDavid are on it? Do you allow yourselves not to be full business all the time and go, hey, that's pretty cool?
Well, I'll let Coop answer and stick him a little around, not divulging who he's going to play who with. Seeing as how that's where you're headed with that, Mike. But as far as the opportunity to work with Jimmy and Doug, Julian and Kyle, and put together, sort of the fantasy hockey, we don't get to do that. And going to be talking openly, as Coop talked about, with each and every one of our guys that we're competing against in a lot of ways, has been really an interesting process. It's been great. It's been incredibly honest and forthright. We put game reports in after every single game, whether it's our own players or other players, and just sort of peeling back the onion of what we were trying to put together. I go back to my kids are a little older, but they were excited about video games being able to have GM mode and put together their own teams. And you do get to do that in this case, with the ultimate goal of putting together the best team. And that's what we were trying to do and accomplish.
I would sit here and say, Donnie took the second part. The first part, yes, I think the familiar part, it's all well and good, but that was not the deciding factor. We took the best players to put together the best team. The fact that some of the guys play together on the same team, I think, is probably more coincidence than anything. Does it help that Taze and McCarr are familiar with each other? There's no question. But I think if you split those guys up, I think when this team was picked, they'd both be on the team with or without each other. And so I do think in the end, does that help? Does it help walking into the locker room and, for instance, knowing other players, or at least having the comfort of that some of your own players on that team? There's no question. Now, for Petro, he's been around the block for a while. He's probably played with 3/4 of these guys, but there's probably some newbies in there that haven't had this opportunity, and it's great that we do have some of that. But like I said, if the 23 players played on 23 different teams, we still would have taken those 23 guys.
CJ, your mic is open.
Hi, it's Chris Johnson. Don, I'm just wondering, can you share with us ballpark how many players you view as sort of being in reserve or on standby in case of injury, and maybe how you guys navigated the conversations with those type of players?
Yeah, Chris, I mean, obviously you're really excited to be congratulating and welcoming a player onto the team. And the same vein, you're talking to general managers, you're talking to, in some of the cases, players that were on your team, and delivering, a hard message that, disappointment that they didn't make it right now. But at the end of the day, we have a lot of games between now and February. Our rosters, in all likelihood, we hope we pick the team that's going to stay together all the way through, but we just don't know. So we have, opened it back up to have a better understanding of who's going to play well between now and then. We certainly have done a lot of groundwork. We've laid a lot of groundwork of players that we would feel very, very comfortable with because they were that close to making the team as it stands today. But we're going to continue to make sure that we're in tune with who continues to play well. If we do lose a particular player in a particular position, we may have to go down that road and circle back with Coop and how he sees the group coming together and how he envisioned it when we were fully healthy. So, Chris, the list can be really wide, and a player may choose otherwise. That's not on there. I doubt it, based on the pride of all our Canadian players. I think everybody would welcome the opportunity to get back on the ice in this situation, and that's what we're hopeful for. But we don't know that, and we have to be respectful of each and every player. But they should know that this was incredibly difficult to put just 23 players on a team.
Josh, your mic's open.
It's Josh Clipperton with the Canadian Press again. For either John or Don, there's a lot of players that have won cups on your roster. I'm wondering how much that came into the equation, if two players are really close in management's eyes, pardon me, and what you hope that experience and those big moments will mean in such a short tournament.
I think when you're in this process, if you're not checking all the boxes and looking at the situations players have been in the past, then you're not doing a proper job. And I can't answer for Don. We've talked about this a ton, though. You can't put a price tag on experience. And I truly believe this is a tournament where you're basically playing 3 game 7s, and there's no really margin for error. You have to win these games to be able to put yourself in a position to get to the final. And the more, I think, experience you have, or these players have to be in those situations, it can do nothing but help them. But is it the ultimate determining factor? No, but it's sure pretty cool to know you've got cup winner here, cup winner here, cup winner here, Olympic winner here, world championship, and guys that have been in these big games that understand what it's like not only to win a Stanley Cup or to play in a final or to be in the gold medal game of international tournament. You can't help but love to have that experience.
Greg, your mic is open.
Thank you. Hey, it's Greg Wyshynski with ESPN. Hey, Don, guys make the team, guys don't make the team. But Connor Bedard is sort of a unique situation, knowing how important he could be for Team Canada in the future. There's a lot of speculation that Bedard might end up making this roster before the season. Was curious about the thought process and leaving him off the current incarnation of it.
Well, I had a real up-close viewing of Connor last night. Thankfully, Sway made a hell of a save. Otherwise, that game might have been tied last night. He is a terrific young player. And, when I talked about earlier, Greg, in us going through the process as a management group of building the best team to compete in February, with certainly an eye towards what the next wave of future great players is going to look like, we're excited on both sides of the ledger. And I think, Connor firmly falls in that later category of we just know the special qualities he has. And he, Coop just talked about the experiences he's going to go through, the world championships he went through last year, going through the second, time around the league now, so to speak, in your second year. And there's some challenges associated with that. He's working through that, in a situation where he gets all the attention possible from the best players that he's playing against each and every night. So I think he's living and breathing it right now, and it's only going to help him continue to build his resume, and we're excited about that. And there are several other players that fall into the same category that very well could be, part of Doug's team in the Olympics. And Coop will be coaching them the next go around. Again, I don't think Mark and Petro want to give up their spots. They're going to continue to play and play at the high level, and we'll have tough decisions to make moving forward. But I do believe the next wave and generational players that we have in Canada are going to make these decisions equally as hard as they were today.
Dennis, your mic is open.
Hi, Don and John. This is Dennis Gorman from Newsday, New York. Similar to Greg's question, there was some speculation here that you guys might have been looking at Alexis Lafreniere and Matt Barzal for the initial roster. Just kind of what was your thought process in not picking them for this roster?
Well, Dennis, I hope you can appreciate. I'll talk in a little more general terms as I referenced with Connor. In Alex's case, in Matt's case, in other players that were on the doorstep precipice of making this team, because they all could. They're all great players. They're all impact players on their own teams. They could step in here if we have injuries. They're clearly been identified as players that we have highly scouted. In Matt's case, he had some injury troubles this year. So, but the body of work that he has, the situations as Coop referenced, going to 2 conference finals. These are great players. And that's the absolute luxury that Canada has in this sense of being able to go through just a Rolodex of players that could play in different situations, and you'd feel very comfortable if they were on the team. I think they've done a terrific job to make our job as a management staff and the coaches really hard in terms of narrowing it down to 23. You can clearly understand we were lobbying for 25. We would like to have more access to players, like you do in the Olympics, because the decisions were just that hard to make. And the players themselves are doing what they're supposed to do. They're making our jobs really hard.
Marc-Antoine, go ahead.
Thank you. Marc-Antoine Godin with Radio Canada again. My question is for Don. A lot has been said about goaltending, the fact that maybe it's not the strongest position for Team Canada. How did you go? Petro was alluding to the fact that Binnington and Hill are both very competitive goalies, but I'd like to hear from you. What were the deciding factors in picking Hill, Binnington, and also Montembeault? And as a side note, was there any preoccupation in making sure that all regions of the country would be represented on that team?
I'll try and break down the number of questions sort of in there, Mark. Again, we had nothing but a singular goal of building the best team possible. I think there was a lot of outside noise in terms of the goaltending. We looked at it completely differently. We looked at it and saying we've got players, in our goaltending pool that have won the Stanley Cup. That's an awfully good place to start. As Petro talked about, goaltenders that are highly, highly competitive, another good place to start, that played in those high leverage situations and have won. We all used our own internal goalie departments to sort of comb through any type of analytics, how a player was playing in front of his own team, what situations, what high dangers, all the stuff that we look at to put together on our own teams and apply it on a much wider scale. And again, we were a lot more calm in picking the goaltenders, than maybe what the outside world was viewing. I think we had tremendous amount of choices and some guys that have played really well. Now, injuries aside, moving forward, would you like to have access to a guy who's on an absolute heater for the next 2 months? Possibly. But, again, we have to pick our rosters now. We feel very comfortable where they are and where we are. And I think that, and they're going to provide us the backbone that we need to win this tournament.
Chris, your mic is open.
Hey, this question's for both Don and John. You've kind of alluded to, selecting the best players, for this team. Do you feel that kind of analysis has changed over the years to, include experienced guys that have intangibles and things of that nature versus the most talented players? And is that part of your processes in selecting this team?
I think It's hard for me to answer that question just for the mere fact that I wasn't a part of like the 2010 or 2014. And so there's basically been a full decade between really the best on best. And I understand it was the World Cup in 2016, but there was a lot of players probably playing on the North American team that could have played on their own country's team. I think every year is different, but ultimately it's to pick the best team. And I have, from speaking with previous coaches, I've had conversations with Mike Babcock and Ken Hitchcock and Claude Julien and guys that have been Joel Quenneville, and especially when we were preparing for the Olympics in 2022 and the thought process that goes into building a team. But ultimately, it's about building a team. And as Donnie alluded to, there's a Rolodex in Canada. And I think you look at when you're building a team, if, maybe in the past in some countries, you get through 15 guys and be like, all right, how are we going to fill out the next 7? Where, I feel, especially looking at these 4 rosters, it's from top to bottom, everybody's, pretty much stacked. And in Canada, we have that luxury. And so for us, it's about building the best team. Now, do you need guys that are going to play in a power play? Obviously. Do you need guys that are going to kill penalties? Do you need guys that are going to be 5-on-6, 6-on-5? And all those things go into it. And so, and then the other thing is, there's going to be guys that play, I don't want to say a line share of the minutes, but they're going to play minutes. And then there's going to be guys that are used to playing minutes on their NHL team that may not play minutes. And they have to be able to perform if they're playing, I guess, less minutes, what they do in the regular season. And so, there's certain mentalities and certain players that have skill sets for that. And so, like I said, I wasn't a part of those teams a decade ago, but I think a lot of the same mentality goes in about building the same team and what players can handle what. And I think, Donnie and the staff have done a, fantastic job in building that.
We have time for just a couple more here. Matt, go ahead.
Hey guys, it's Matt Larkin from Daily Faceoff. I want to echo what I asked Mark and Alex earlier. If you could both answer, that would be awesome. Just looking at this tournament as sort of a possible, I don't want to say stepping stone, but kind of dry run for the Olympics. How important is it to not just assess the player's performance in terms of making or not making it in 2026, but also just how they work together in terms of experimenting with the lineup and chemistry and kind of preparing for what you might be deploying next year?
For me, I think that when that puck drops on the first game of the tournament, it'll be 0 people will be thinking about the Olympics. And everybody will be thinking, on our team anyway, about winning the hockey game. And it'll all be about 4 nations. And I don't think at one time anybody's going to sit here and say this is a stepping stone for the Olympics. Now, when the tournament's over and we're all doing our debrief on everything that goes on, I think that maybe at that time we'll sit here and say this worked or this didn't, or we can Monday morning quarterback everything that goes on to give ourselves a better chance, or maybe we've won the tournament and how we can keep it going. And so I think you take all that information in after the tournament, but we built this team to win the 4 nations, and the Olympics is still a year away. And so are there players that are going to develop and take strides in that time? There's no question. And especially some of these younger players where you sit there and your development continues when you're 23, 24, 25 years old. Like Donnie said earlier, that's just going to make decisions tougher. But I would not sit here and say the Olympics are on the forefront of everybody. It is for sure 4 nations.
Yeah, I mean, I would echo most of what Coop says. I would say the only thing maybe from a management perspective was we definitely went in with a wider lens for that particular reason, to identify players that are going to project out down the road, players that might not necessarily be ready for, I mean, they could play, they're ready, they could impact, but again, they weren't pushing somebody out of a job that we felt earned it at this point in time to win, with a singular focus of going to the Four Nations, to win. Again, selfishly, did we build out a database with all those players? Yeah, we did, because we're going to have to continue to have those stack up on top of each other the next year and a half, and make a really hard decision on several of the same players that we've just been discussing, while you're talking about emerging players. And we're incredibly excited about the emerging players as well, but we could never lose sight of the fact that we were building the team for February, the team that was going to be put together to win that event, and then we move forward from there.
We'll go to Willie Ramirez next, and then we'll finish with Danny Webster. Willie, go ahead.
Thank you. Willie Ramirez for the Hockey News. John, this one's for you. You obviously blended some incredible personalities to win a couple of Stanley Cups. When you think about the talent and the leadership that's on this team out of 23 names, including Sid and Connor, I'm just curious if you've thought about the locker room and whose personalities you're maybe hoping to just sort of gravitate to that leadership role, and where Stone and Petro fall in that.
Yeah, that's a really good question. And I think right now, at this point, we're at a time to celebrate the 23 players that have made this team. And I think over the next, 2 months here, as things go on, like, we have thought about leadership. We have thought about, that's why, players are in the position they are in, because of how they have led on their NHL teams. So I think you can never underestimate how much that matters, of when the game's on the line, when there's 20,000 people at the edge of their seat, who's under control in those situations, and who can take when maybe a game is sliding, the ebbs and flows and ups and downs of a hockey game. Who are the players that have proven to be able to excel in those situations and calm the waters in those situations, have been able to lift guys up in the room, and so there's no question that goes into part of the process. But I guess that's another exciting part, moving forward here, is who we're going to eventually identify as the leaders of the group.
And last question here. Thanks for waiting, Danny. Go ahead.
Not a problem. Danny Webster with the Las Vegas Review-Journal. John, for you, I just wanted to ask about your coaching staff. Two of them, ironically, facing off tomorrow, and Bruce and Pete. I'm curious, you talked about getting to know them, about their players and the players that they're bringing in, but how good has it been to pick their brains in a more collective mindset, instead of just, when you see each other throughout the season or in the one-offs, but having a chance to talk to each other about the team, especially with two of those guys who are really brilliant hockey minds as well?
Yeah, I'm extremely fortunate to have been afforded this situation. And I think I'd be remiss if when you look around, not only, we're talking a lot about the players and being chosen to be on this team, but it's the staff. And you look at how many fantastic Canadian coaches are out there in our league. I didn't take this decision lightly of who's going to be chosen, but I look at this staff, and I think there's just so many boxes that get checked in experience and winning, and some talents that they have. And I think as soon as you bring up Canada and you put the jersey on and you put the Canadian hat on, honestly, the NHL teams, they become second, and it's what's Canada's first. And nobody's hiding trade secrets. Everybody's going through their systems with a fine-tooth comb, and why this works and why this doesn't, and which is the best one for our team. And it's been extremely rewarding to be a part of this, and just the free flow of information that goes on with some of the best coaches ever to coach this game. And so pretty blessed to be a part of this and to be able to lead this group. But I oftentimes leave our coaches meetings, and I'm clearly not the smartest guy in the room, because there's some great hockey minds, as you alluded to. And so one of the big things for me is looking forward to being able to work hand in hand in a game situation where the emotions are heightened and put together strategy to help our team win.
Thank you, John. Thank you, Don. Merci de votre présence aujourd'hui. Thank you, everyone, for joining us today. That concludes today's media availability.
Thanks, everyone.
Thanks, everyone.
Thanks, Spencer, for hosting, and Sean from Hockey Canada. And thanks, everybody, for attending. Next Four Nations media availability will be at 1 p.m. Eastern with Team USA players Charlie McAvoy of the Bruins, Jack Eichel of Vegas, and Adam Fox from the Rangers. Thanks very much.